Welcome. You're listening to the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, a podcast production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. And thank you. This is Dr. Ashley and the boss, and welcome, Dr. Ashley.
Thanks, boss. Yeah.
Yep. My name is David Ross. I am the Executive Director of the Mental Health and Recovery Board, and this is, Dr. Ashley, one of my favorite special episodes because it's
The RSVP edition.
That's the RSVP edition. And for those of you who do not know, for 15 years, the Mental Health and Recovery Board has been offering what we call the RSVP Conference, which stands for Respect, Success, Value, and Purpose Conference. And this is a very special conference, Dr. Ashley, because my mentor and predecessor, Mr. Stone, worked with a national advocate, Pat Risser, to set up a conference that was different than other conferences. And what we mean by that is many of the conferences that are for counselors and social workers and those that are in recovery, they're very much focused on what we call a medical model approach, a traditional approach that emphasizes medical interventions and, unfortunately, psychiatric interventions. And we really wanted to let folks know that, there are a lot of other approaches that are not psychiatric or medical model based that are much more in line with the board's emphasis on what we call the three legs of the stool: medication optimization, trauma-informed care, and the principles of recovery. So all that said, the conference has been going 15 years strong. We have wonderful speakers every year, and this March 27th is no exception. Is that the right date? March 27th?
March 27th. Yep, it's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, 2024, and it's at a new venue this year.
Yeah, we're actually doing a hybrid conference again. We did that last year, and it was a hit. So we're doing the in-person portion of the conference will be at Mount Vernon Estates in Ashland. And then the hybrid part you can join by Zoom. So that's really cool.
So for our listeners, Mount Vernon Estates is a newer venue in Ashland County. It's on the north end. And for those of you that know about the new roundabout that was put in there with 250, it's maybe, 5 minutes north of that on 250, depending on how fast you drive. Dr. Ashley is known for her lead foot, so she can get up there in a much quicker than I can.
And it is beautiful. It's a beautiful venue.
It's a beautiful venue in a beautiful setting, and we thought that fit perfectly. Not only because we're doing a hybrid conference, but because the focus this year is a little different than in the other previous years. We're focusing on art, music therapy, and other alternatives in that vein. So
we're calling the conference this year The Art of Wellness.
The Art of Wellness.
I thought that was clever because we are talking about art therapy, music therapy, and other alternative forms of treatment. So
absolutely.
It's really exciting.
Yep, and March 27th, and it is a Wednesday. It's an all-day conference. As Dr. Ashley said, we want folks to come out in person, but we know maybe you live out of the county, out of the state, or you just prefer, to Zoom in for a conference. You'll have that opportunity as well.
Absolutely, yep.
Well, we wanted to take a little bit of time to tell folks what's going to be happening on the 27th. So not very exciting, but registration starts at 8. We want folks to know that between 8 and 9 o'clock, you can come out to Mount Vernon. You can get registered. We are going to have some snacky stuff.
Yes, snackies and a lot of vendor tables.
That's
resource
true.
tables. So
Yep, we have at least 8 folks that are going to be setting up. And the nice thing about that is these are usually local folks or local programs that are offered in our county. And you can get all kinds of information. It's worth coming out early to get your coffee, to get your, I don't know if they're going to be scones. I don't know what they're going to be.
I know pastries are going to be there.
Mystery pastries will be there.
Can't go wrong.
Right? And look at the vendor table. So come out 8 to 9 to the conference registration. And then keynote. Dun, dun, dun.
The keynote, yes. Dr. Catherine Jackson is coming to talk about art therapy. And she's a practicing art therapist and an associate professor.
Yeah.
The title of her keynote is Utilizing Creative Arts Therapies to Facilitate Trauma Recovery and Holistic Health.
Yeah, and we are so thrilled. Dr. Catherine Jackson spoke with Ashley and I about presenting, and she couldn't have been nicer about it. She's a big name in this space, and for her to take the time to come down in person to do the keynote. We really are honored by her.
Absolutely. I think it's really cool. She's, been a part of advocating for art therapy to become credentialed in Ohio.
Yes.
So we get to hear about that, and then also using art therapy to treat trauma.
Yep. Shout out as well to Candace Ressler over at Appleseed. Dr. Catherine Jackson was brought to my attention by Candace, who actually trained under her when she was getting her education. So that's always great when a student can reach back to a professor and, stay in touch and say, look, I've got somebody that'd be great. So I appreciate Candace. And Candace's name will come up a little bit later on because she's actually a practicing art therapist here in town and is going to have a breakout. But we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yes, very exciting. So at what time? 10:35, we have our second plenary
So that first
session.
Dr. Jackson will go for about 90 minutes then, it looks like.
Yes. And then we have Pathways. They're going to be talking about recovery in real time.
And what's interesting, a lot of people don't know, Pathways is one of the programs. It's a peer recovery program, and that is run under the auspices of Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Cleveland. And this is wonderful. The Pathways folks, several of them have been involved with us in the planning of the conference. In fact, Dr. Ashley, they've been involved with every one of our 15 years now of conferences, and that's critical. Folks talk about having these conferences that are aimed at assisting folks that are in recovery, and then they don't include them in the planning efforts. We knew, Mr. Stone as well as Mr. Risser when they were they have a saying, "Nothing about us without us." So, you can't say you're really including the voice unless you're including the voice. So we appreciate that many members of the Pathways program and Deb Brookshire, who facilitates that, have been involved with us since day one.
Yeah, it's been so great. And they always have really great ideas and they think of things we didn't think of. So having them a part of the planning process is key in this conference.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're doing this morning plenary, which will be from 10:35 roughly to noon. And as you say, Pathways Recovery in Real Time, what I believe they're going to highlight, so as a peer center, as a peer recovery program, they're going to talk about all the different alternative art and music, how they've used that over the years and how they're currently using it and what they plan on doing in the near future.
Yeah, and some of the different groups they're doing too.
Yeah.
I think they're going to talk about that. They're doing so many different things. So.
Yeah, and I know they've done drum circle work in the past.
Yeah.
In fact, that's been a part of the RSVP conference in years past.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yep. Well, following that, what do we have next?
Next is lunch. I mean, that's important.
But it's not just going to be lunch.
Lunch, which includes probably mushroom soup.
It is going to probably include mushroom soup. So for those of you who do not know, the RSVP conference has been associated with Ashland University's fabulous mushroom soup for many, many years. And teaser, we think even though it's going to be at Mount Vernon, we're still going to be able to get that soup. I can't say much more than that, Dr.
It's important. It's always important on the evaluation. So we've considered this.
We have.
But over lunch, we are actually going to have the Buckeye Art Therapy Association president come and talk with the group about the next steps in becoming a licensed art and or music therapist. So that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool because Buckeye Art Therapy, they were one of the leading advocates down at the state in this last budget cycle to ensure that art and music therapy did, in fact, get licensed, and there's a path to licensure for those disciplines. So prior to this, folks would be practicing, but it wasn't a license. So for the listeners, you and I are both licensed counselors, and there are licensed social workers. There are licensed marriage and family therapists. Well, folks that were practicing in the art and music therapy space, they weren't licensed. They might have been credentialed. But now, since the law went into effect, they're actually going to get a license for that if they follow the certain procedures that are being developed actually right now. And Buckeye Art Therapy is going to talk about that whole process.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great. And people want to know how to get licensed, so they'll help with that.
And we want several things to happen as a result of the conference, but we are hoping that folks that are in attendance will hear about how the next steps to get licensed, and they'll actually pursue that. We want more art and music therapists licensed in our county. And if that's one of the outcomes of this conference, I think that'll be a success for sure.
Definitely. That's something we believe in. Those therapies work. Those things help people. So
and
more of that.
Yeah. One of the things I think it's important to mention is, because I get this question, David, licensed art and music therapist, is that a a substitute for the traditional office-based counseling? And my answer is it can be, or it can be something that goes alongside of. So it really depends on, I think, the individual situation, but I think we can think of it in both ways. So for instance, you might be seeing a traditional therapist in an office setting, but in addition to that, you might also be engaged with an art or a music therapist in addition to, but it could be in place of. So it really does depend on each situation, but I like folks to keep an open mind in that regard.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yep.
So after lunch then, from 12:45 to 1:45, we have a plenary session. We're having the VA, Debbie and Jeremy from the VA, coming in to talk about a whole health program that's for veterans.
Yes. This one, you and I had met with Brian, our local contact with Veteran Services, and we told him about the conference. He was excited and says, have you heard about the VA's whole health program? And we had not at that time. We've had a few conversations, got to know more about that program. But even I think the VA has recognized that a medication-heavy style of intervention is inadequate. There needs to be additional paradigms, ways of thinking about helping our vets and first responders. So this whole health program really gets at those alternative approaches, including things like music and art therapy, but other things that they're going to talk about, I believe, besides that.
Yeah, I remember he said, Jeremy, when we met with them about talking at the conference, he said that it's important to be able to connect with veterans in a different way because they're a different population and sometimes harder to connect with or to reach. So I think they're going to talk about some of that and then what the program can offer.
Yeah,
so.
Very excited about that because as we know, we don't have a real strong a hospital, VA hospital here locally. So oftentimes our vets would have to travel for some of the services, and I know some of them would prefer to get their services locally. So the more folks that are offering these kinds of approaches like whole health locally, the better. So we're hoping that might be an outcome of having them present at the conference.
Yeah, that's great. The next afternoon plenary session from 1:50 to 2:50, that's going to be Catherine Reamer and Christina Kapp, and they're talking about advocates, allies, and peers.
Ooh, so that's an interesting title, Advocates, Allies, and Peers. What do you think they're going to be focusing on this one?
I know that they had mentioned advanced directives, mental health advanced directives, and individuals' rights and advocacy.
Yeah, and that's an interesting concept because folks may not think about this, but whether for yourself or maybe for your parent that might be older, think about how you want to be treated maybe when your voice isn't able to be heard. So God forbid there's an accident and you're being treated by medical professionals, emergency medical professionals. How can you really give voice to your preferences when you're not conscious and maybe nobody's around? So having these advanced directives in place, whether it's for mental health, psychiatric issues, or primary health issues, is important. So it's a way for your preferences to be honored, even when maybe you're not able to articulate them.
Yeah, I think it's not always the most fun thing to think about ahead of time, right? But it's important that you do, and for yourself and for your loved ones.
Right.
So that's going to be an important topic, I think.
Yeah, and being an advocate either for yourself or someone else, I don't know if folks know that there's a bit of an art and a science to that. Not everybody knows how to best advocate for themselves or somebody else. So I think Catherine and KK, as we like to call her, they're going to talk about how to be an effective advocate either for yourself or other people. There really is, like I say, an art and a science to that. If you advocate in a certain way, it might actually make things harder.
Right, that's true.
Your tone, the language you're using with the professionals you're trying to advocate for, that matters. And I think they're going to cover a lot of that.
Yeah, that's great. The last session of the day from 2:55 to 4 o'clock, Candace Ressler and Rebecca Smith are going to be talking about creating safe spaces through art and music therapy.
Yeah, I am super excited about this one because these are both local providers, one an art therapist, one a music therapist. They are already doing good work here in Ashland County, so they're going to talk a little bit about that work, how you can access that help because both of them, like I said, are available to help folks through their respective organizations. And I just think it's great that we have people right now that are doing this kind of work in the county. We just want to see it grow. We'd like if folks are interested and attracted to this milieu. That Dr. Ashley, that's my double Scrabble.
Word of the day.
Triple word scored. Milieu. Look it up. There's an I, there's an L, an E, and an A, and a U in that. But for folks that really think that that's a milieu worth pursuing, they're going to hear directly and can ask questions directly of people that are actually doing it. But I can tell you, the brief conversations I've had with Candace and Rebecca, they love what they do. Their passion for their work will come out.
That's every time I've talked to them, that's what I take from it as well. And I also think it's really cool. Candace has been doing art therapy with clients locally, and we're going to have an art display at the RSVP conference of works that the clients have made and offered for the display. So I think that's another exciting thing for the folks that come out.
Yeah. And we didn't mention it specifically, but don't worry. If you need an afternoon snack, you're going to have that. We're going to make sure we have coffee throughout the day.
Yes.
For those of you like me, Dr. Ashley, that need a little bit of caffeine in the afternoon. And I believe might be a cookie or two to munch on. But, something else we're offering is continuing education units for counselors and social workers.
Yes, we requested CEUs. It's not been approved yet, but that takes some time. So we're hoping to offer 6. If you attend all of the sessions, you would get 6 CEUs
Up to 6
for
counselors, social workers. And for those of you that need those, please, you probably recognize, as Dr. Ashley said, we apply. There's always a delay in getting those approved from the state. We anticipate that they will be, but you'll know that for sure when you come to the event. Now, how do folks register for this, Dr. Ashley?
Yes, registration is live.
Now?
Right now. Please register now. That would be great. We're getting closer to the event. So, I mean, we're like 6 weeks out now?
6 weeks out.
Yeah, so it's time. You can go to our website, which is ashlandmhrb.org, and you can link to the registration there. If you follow us on Facebook, you can also find it there. And I would say if you're not following us on Facebook, please do that. We're sharing.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. We share a lot of cool stuff. And we'd love to have you.
Yeah. And for those of you that are older, like me, maybe you have a LinkedIn account or a Instagram.
LinkedIn or Instagram as well. Yes, you can find the information there.
Dr. Ashley, are we on TikTok?
We're not on TikTok yet.
Yeah. No, I don't think we should be, Dr. Ashley.
I think we should contemplate that seriously.
Well, listeners, let us know if you'd like us to be on TikTok.
Yeah, let us know.
We'll do what you say, obviously. So, so that is a full day. Registration from 8 to 9. You're out of there by 4 o'clock. You get lunch. You get a morning and an afternoon snack. Coffee throughout the day, lots of great opportunities to network. You get a chance to visit all our vendors throughout the day. They're going to be there all day. Beautiful scenery. I don't know.
Another thing I wanted to say about the conference, I think it's really kind of unique for this one. It's not just for professionals or counselors and social workers. Yep. It's also for community members or students or anyone who's interested in these topics can come. And I think that's kind of unique.
That is, and I appreciate you bringing that up. This is our 5th year. We've always had some turnout from community members and students in particular. So please, as Dr. Ashley said, anybody we invite, this is not just for professionals or persons in recovery. Certainly it is for those folks as well, but it's for anybody that's interested in this topic, which we hope there are a lot of folks because there is a movement. Let me say it like that, Dr. Ashley, for these kinds of alternatives. I think there's certainly a place for office-based therapy work. It's still vital, but for a lot of folks, I think they prefer some of these different types and approaches.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited about the conference this year. So
me as well. So there you have it. Dr. Ashley and the boss, we are promoting the 15th annual RSVP conference on March 27th, 2024. That is a Wednesday. Registration 8 to 9. You can register today. It is live. Go to the website, www.ashlandmhrb.org, or on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn.
Yes, we hope to see you there.
Yes, we hope to see you there. If you want an autograph from Dr. Ashley, that would be the best place to get that.
That's the time.
You are still willing to do that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you again, and we will see you at the conference. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast. The podcast is a production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. You can reach the board by calling 419-281-3139. Please remember that the board funds a local 24/7 crisis line through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. It can be reached by calling 419-289-6111. That's 419-289-6111. Until next time, please join us in Keeping Ashland Healthy.